Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank you and the ranking member for holding this hearing today, and I want to thank all of our witnesses for being here. I want to start with a question to Ms. Dobson and Ms. Kim. There is some confusion about the actual remediation steps taken by these processor companies in the wake of the discovery of the Meltdown and Spectre vulnerabilities. So the question is, did these companies actually patch the vulnerabilities, or did these companies just take steps to make it harder for hackers to access these processors? In other words, did these companies eliminate all risk associated with these vulnerabilities? And if not, what can be done to fully eliminate the vulnerabilities?
So, great question. There's certainly both in many instances where we attempt to recreate the conditions in which these vulnerabilities could be exploited, and where possible mitigations and patches and so forth are developed, as far as ones that we cannot reproduce. It's difficult for us to do that, but we believe the complexity and sort of the extreme difficulty of these research areas creates a necessary hurdle, that it isn't a standard widespread issue. Okay. Also, while it is not common for many to accept downloads and updates and patches, we believe that the education of consumers to always be vigilant about making sure that the latest updates and security patches are applied, because both Spectre and Meltdown require malicious code to be present on a device. So there has to be some access to that particular device in order to exploit it using this method.
Thank you, Ms. Dobson.
Thank you for the question. We understand that we will continue to be dealing with Spectre and Meltdown issues for years. I think Mr. Mannion mentioned that there was a variant that came out just recently, as in yesterday. So we will continue to need to be vigilant. We need to continue to work on our capabilities to build stronger systems. We need to instill resiliency in our people, processes, and technologies as we're dealing in cybersecurity.
Okay, so that leads me to kind of my second question, and it's really a follow-up to what Senator Gardner was also asking about. Ms. Dodson, you are the only government witness on the panel. So are you aware of how many United States government computers currently have processors containing these vulnerabilities?
So NIST as an organization works to provide remediation kinds and work with industry in a public-private manner to actually provide capabilities for patching, et cetera, through our national vulnerability database. The actual number of patches that have been applied across the U.S. government is an operational issue under the purview of DHS. So I can look into that.
Well, I would appreciate that, because I would like to know how many of our government computers still have this vulnerability, and whether all of them have received the mitigation updates that would make it more difficult for a foreign actor to try to exploit these government computers.
We have made those patches available through our national vulnerability database to both government and industry.
But the question remains, who is checking to see whether those patches have actually been installed?
And the Department of Homeland Security put out a binding operational directive for critical patches for the U.S. government systems, and so the reporting goes to them.
Okay, well, I will just conclude by this comment. DHS, supported by Congress, is working hard to try to defend our government systems from foreign cyber attacks. Just recently, the United States government took action to address the prevalence of the Kaspersky software in our systems, while last month the Senate passed a defense bill that banned the use of ZTE products by the federal government. So we are focused on this. I'm a co-sponsor of the bill that Senator Gardner and Senator Warner introduced. So it's really troubling and concerning that many, if not all, computers used by the government contain a processor vulnerability that would allow hostile nations to steal key data sets and information. It's even more troubling that these processor companies knew about these vulnerabilities for 6 months before notifying DHS. So we need to consider additional ways to require the federal government's equipment suppliers to promptly notify DHS of potential breaches or vulnerabilities that could weaken our federal systems. I know that there's a lot more work to do here, but I just wanted to make sure that we're all clear about that and look forward to working with you more on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Hassan.